Hello everyone. This is a video on a requested material for how to draw caricatures like books. I'm going to be honest with you. All the books that I've gotten over the years, what it taught me was that if I got them, I just learned to draw like every one of them. And to be honest with you, I'm not really interested in drawing like anyone. When you go on the internet and you take a look at how people draw, everything's pretty predictable and everyone's doing exactly the same thing. And I'm just being completely honest. I mean, I'm sticking to old school stuff, okay? So this is what I stick to. I'm just gonna draw what I'm telling you, and I'm being completely honest. I'm unveiling how I go about it, but the truth is, this is it. Like, learn how to draw the skull. I pretty much traumatized myself on how to draw this thing. All right? It's as basic as that. Draw the skull and then check it out. I mean, a gentleman actually talked to me about this because I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm looking at all these books and I'm confused. Like, how do I do this? And he drew the same thing. He just drew a skull and he goes, now watch this. And this is where the eureka moment was for me. He goes, all you got to do is put a blanket of skin over it. And you got yourself a person. So to me, that made sense. I mean, that was it. After that, I was sold. I'm like, of course. So if we were to draw this again, from that point on, I had like X-ray vision. So you see this little bone there? There, see? See that little, you see this bone right there? It's right there. Eyebrows, right here. Hold on, let me erase that. Nobody has black pupils. All right, and then brows, nose, lips, chin. See, now you're seeing like all these little lines. There's reason for all of it. That little indentation's a reason. Why I stopped right there is a reason. See? This bone right here, it's right there. See? This bone also connects to this muscle. I'll show you what a bunch of drawing books show me how to do it. They do this stuff. And that's what I did for like a long time. You know, I did all this like circles and math and I don't know what's going on. In the end of the day, all this did not help me how to draw caricatures or how to draw at all. It showed me a bunch of fanciness to get over that, to be honest with you. And then once I learned how to draw this stuff, I was like, man, this makes sense because now look, if you actually want a caricature, check it out. You just grab the rules and you bend them, right? You break them. Well, you necessarily aren't breaking them, but you know, you're following it within the guidelines. So watch. Small socket, look. Now let's push it. mean, it's all within the confines of the rules here, the anatomy. Okay. Now I took this a step further, right? So to know the skull, you have to know your planes. So here's an example. So, okay, so you got the skull. Now let's draw eyeballs, right? And then the eyelids on top, eyebrows. I mean, it's pretty much the same principle. But you gotta traumatize yourself. These are your ABCs of drawing. I learned to, when that guy told me, he said that he knew, his name is Frank Gomez, by the way. He said that he read on Michelangelo and how he studied cadavers. So he said he would stay after school in his biology class drawing the skull. And I thought, dude, I'm doing exactly the same thing. And I did. And I don't even draw like him, you know? I draw like me. That's all I'm curious about. There is no right and wrong to doing caricatures. You just do it. But for me, I'm letting you know what works for me. Like how I draw and what my process is. This is it. No book had this stuff. Not the way it was explained to me. When he drew that, I realized that he understands because he just did it real quick. So I was like, well, I'm gonna traumatize myself to the point where I started doing stuff like this. I broke it down into planes. Because I was desperate to learn how to do this. What I'm showing you guys here, like even though I'm doing it real quick, took me years to learn. To the point where I even picked up sculpting because of it. And so when I do these type of drawings, I can actually feel the clay in my hands. Okay? And now, this is one aspect of the way I do things. Then I picked up things from people who don't know anything about anatomy. So the people who don't know anything about anatomy, they draw more in shapes. So for an example, I've seen people draw caricatures like this. See, like these two lines, and they'll like draw eyes. And it'll look like people. And what I like about it is that this is completely valid, you know? There's people who draw like this and they're famous or whatever, right? I mean, there's even people who will go so brave and they'll draw a swirl for an eyeball, an eye, and you know, whatever, they'll draw their caricature. If you guys want to look up this artist called Al Hirschfield, this is what he does. He does like, he'll do a caricature with like a line like this. And like the hair or whatever. And they're all like swirls, you know? So what I did was I blended these sensibilities into structure. So if I was gonna structure that up, see? I can apply the same things with the anatomy and I can fit it within those rules. You see these lines here? Those lines are these guys, see? And these jaw lines are right here. I'm still using the principles of anatomy. So my style of doing it is shape first, structure later. And you see this part here, like you see this here? It's right there. See, you can fit it with all in the shape. All right. So now what I find myself doing is, because I like structure so much, I focus more on the shapes now. You know, so like if I were to draw Donald Trump, let's say for an example, what are the most iconic shapes for him, right? So it's his hair, right? And then we have that killer eyebrow, that cool mouth, the jaw, and then that big flap here of a neck, right? And these are just shapes. But now if I have to structure it, no problem. You know, I do a little bit of both. But you see this line there? It's that line. See this here? This little line I drew right there? That's that. Right there. Right there. See? That's how I know to do that. This here, I know when to stop here because of here. See? So I'm self-taught in that end, where I decided to blend these shapes with my structure. Okay? So there is no book that teaches this. If there is, great. But I should probably make a book and probably show it to you guys. But I mean, and then another part of caricatures is, for me, if you want to learn how to draw it like me, that help you. Learn to draw people off the top of your head, but the way you do it is you use basic shapes. Like for example, my sister's like, this is what my sister looks like. See? And then what you want to do is then structure it, right? So the rendering part is the fun part. So structure you can learn. You can learn it in my opinion, flat 6 months. You can learn structure. The best way to learn it, in my opinion, is to sculpt the skull out, sculpt these things out, you know? If you want to learn how to draw a nose, create a nose. And I understand now why Michelangelo sculpted. He got a deeper understanding of drawing. Like for an example, like you see a sphere and you see the light hit it. You see this core shadow, right? You never see objects like this, right? Therefore, see this edge? You can do that here, see? Based off of life, right? So like, let's say I got a nose. Okay, we're gonna bring that example in, see, then all this is what we gotta do.
Power off.
Now, if you want this shadow here, see, and you put it here, and then your drawing will start popping out like crazy. See that? You want a little coarse shadow just like I did there. Here too. You can learn this by doing planes. So for an example, a plane, right? So pretty much, in other words, kind of like a box, right? Like a geometrical shape. My apologies. You know, so for the people who, again, the kind of comments that I get, you know, like, is there books? You know, now I figured this out on my own. I didn't see a book on it. Are there books on structure? Yeah, there's probably tons of them. Do I recommend any? No. I recommend you buying a skull. Buy a skull. Buy a skull and draw from it. The second thing I recommend is drawing everything like if it was like a robot, like, you know, like cubes, you know, like I was saying, this stuff. I'd highly recommend it. Traumatize yourself. Learn it. This is good. Because then you can actually fit in a skull in here, see? It organizes your drawing. All right. So, in the order and the way it was received before I end the video, okay? First, you want to draw your structure. Just get to know your structure, okay? So, draw your structure. Okay. Draw your structure, know it well. Second, draw planes. And if possible, grab some clay. All right. There's clays called Sculpey. All right, super Sculpey. But it really doesn't matter, to be honest with you. Just don't use Play-Doh. So step 1, step 2, and I would say if you want to be great, step 3. This is Michelangelo stuff right here. All right, sculpt. All right, and then the last ingredient, shapes. Make it look like somebody. That's it. And this you have to draw off the top of your head. And then when you're done with your shape pass, then structure it, right? All right. So I'll just say a 3rd, 4, 5. Okay. And this here, though, is your meat and potatoes, man. This 4th step that you do, you put in a sketchbook and you draw people off the top of your head, straight up using shapes. Just, you know, if you can use a triangle for an eye, for a nose, and you make it look like people, and then you structure it, cake. This stuff is where it's at. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I hope I was super helpful, but I'm just being honest with you. I would hate to recommend a book and tell you that this guy knows everything. I'm sorry, I've yet to see a book like that. If you want to buy books on it just so you can see other people's points of view, go for it. Is there one that I recommend? No, I don't. I'm being honest. All right. You guys all have a good one. Thank you.